Yeah, firstly, look, we're talking just a few days after the Israelis conducted a major massacre at Al Tabayin school, which is in Gaza City. It's very interesting that since July 4th, the Israelis have conducted 21 school massacres. That's since July 4th of this year, killing over 260 people just in a month, and these are all attacks at schools. On Al Tabayin, the Israelis dropped GBU-30 bombs. Now, this may not mean anything to most people, but a GBU-30 is a 250-pound bomb produced in the United States. Since October, the US government has sold the Israelis over 10 small parcels of weapons. So if you in the United States sell a country over $25 million worth of weapons at a time, then that weapons shipment has to go through congressional scrutiny. That means there's some public debate about it. But if you remain underneath the 25 million threshold, that's an executive decision. No congressional scrutiny, no public debate. So the United States has sold about $1 billion of weapons since October to Israel, but in these small packets, not coming in a big deal which needs congressional scrutiny. It's these bombs that have been used to attack these schools since July 4th. The Al Tabayin was the worst because it killed 100 people at 4:30 in the morning. People were lining up for the Fajr prayer. Now, what's interesting is even the Israelis said that they think that one of the commanders of Islamic Jihad was there. They think, but they're not sure. That's the Israelis saying that. So, making a guess that the commander is there, they killed 100 civilians. They released a list of 19 targets. Look, they killed 100 people. They released a list of 19 targets. You already have a mismatch. Of the 19 people targeted, at least 9 of them have nothing to do with any of these organizations. One of them is an Arabic teacher. One of them is a school principal, deputy mayor of a town. 6 of them are anti-Hamas, of the people on the list. Of the people on the list of 19, 3 of them had been killed before. They were killed. In fact, 2 of them, one killed on August 9th, one killed on August 10th. This bombing was the morning of August 11th. How could you kill people twice? Very unclear what the Israelis are up to. The reason I'm saying all this is the United States' position vis-a-vis this genocidal war is to continue to arm Israel right through. Despite there's some talk here and there about trying to get Israel to moderate, the American or the US vision of this conflict is arm Israel and allow it to commit a genocide. This was in Gaza City. Now they are going to move to attacking schools in Khan Yunis. They've already announced that. That's the United States path. Yeah, you said 2 parts. That's one. The Chinese path has been different. The Chinese do not arm Israel. By the way, if we just look at statistics of arming Israel, 79% of all imports of weapons into Israel come from the United States. 20% comes from Germany. The rest are minuscule. China does not export weapons to Israel. Okay, so that's something people need to understand and appreciate, that between the United States and Germany, 99% of Israel's weapons come from there, nothing from China. Now, the Chinese view from the beginning has been to condemn the war and to call for a two-state solution, very much like what the Indian government has said, calling for a two-state solution. Why are they calling for a two-state solution? People know this is a nonsensical thing. Well, in my opinion, China and India call for a two-state solution to prevent the annexation of Gaza and the annexation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. This is actually to go along the grain of international law. It's important that people don't get caught up in ideas like, well, the two-state solution is not viable, or that's not relevant. What these countries are not stupid. They know what they're doing. What they're calling for is no annexation of Gaza at the very least. No quote unquote second Nakba and so on. But the Chinese also realize, and this is why this meeting in Beijing was important, the Chinese realize that you can't have a Palestinian political project if the Palestinian factions are not united. This has been a problem for the last 20 years. Over the last 20 years, it has been very difficult to bring Islamic Jihad, Hamas, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Fatah, and then a whole series of small groups, some of them based in Syria and so on. Very hard to bring them together to have a discussion about not the future of Palestine, okay? No, nobody is that naive. Just a discussion of how they should operate together, not in the armed struggle, because that's out of the question as a dispute, because Fatah is basically, by and large, said we can't follow the armed struggle route. So it's not about the strategies and so on. It's about how they should relate to each other regarding the Palestinian Authority, which is the body set up by Oslo as the governance mechanism for the occupied Palestinian territory. It's a very limited agenda. The limited agenda allowed them to come together in Beijing, the 14 different factions. The Chinese brokered this discussion, very important discussion. It is as important, but of course at a different scale, much smaller scale, than the Chinese brokered meeting between Iran and Saudi Arabia. It's a much smaller scale, but it's as important, in my opinion. Having brought them together, what we're seeing very clearly, and I want to be blunt with you, is that the United States is basically taking the path of continue to annihilate the Palestinians, and the Chinese are trying to build peace. It's as clear as that. One is the country of war, the other wants to be the country of peace.
What was fascinating for me was that China does have an extensive trade relationship with Israel as well. I mean, last time I checked, like it has about $15 billion of export, and yet they took this step. It's definitely a refreshing step forward in these gloomy times.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.